Okay, here's the second video lecture on the theories, the four major theories of psychology for Personality of Psychology, Marshall University, fall 2016. We just got through talking about the first major theory in psychology, which was structuralism, focusing on the elements of conscious experience. Now we move into the second of the four major theories, early theories of psychology. Again, I know the email that I sent should have been clear, but I just want to reemphasize at this point, you should be writing all this down. This should be in your notes, as you will be accountable for this on your test. Again, there's no textbook for this course, so this is helping to serve part of that function of you not having a book. So please take good notes here. So now we're talking about functionalism. Now, unlike structuralism, functionalism focuses on the purposes of thoughts or behaviors or emotions. Functionalists are going to start to ask, okay, why do we think certain ways in certain situations? Or why do we behave in certain ways in certain situations? What purpose do those things serve for us? So we're not focusing on the thoughts themselves, we're focusing on the purpose of these thoughts and behaviors and emotions. And William James is often the figure associated with functionalism. James was influenced by a guy named Charles Darwin. You've probably heard of Darwin from some of your other classes. He was influenced by Darwin's theory of evolution. He studied how the mind helps individuals to function in their environment. And also recognized through animal observations how they provided clues for human behavior. James and the functionalists focused on practical issues, such as improving education, for example. So the functionalists are exploring the functions of cognitive processes. In his landmark book, Principles of Psychology, in 1890, William James studied why thoughts, behaviors, and feelings occurred and why they are adaptive. In class, at this point, I would ask, to make this point, I would just ask some simple questions, like, for example, how many of you, and think this to yourself as I'm asking it to you, how many of you have behaved very differently when you are with your parents, or maybe when you are in church, for example, than you would behave if you were, say, with your friends, or maybe at a bar? I would wager that probably your behaviors are a little bit different, maybe even a lot different, based on the environment, or based on the context. So this serves an adaptive function. You behave one way around your parents and in church, perhaps because it serves a certain purpose for you. Maybe you want to present a certain way, or you don't want your parents to fuss at you or lecture you, or you don't want to look bad in church by saying something silly or acting foolishly. Whereas in a bar, you would not want to be demure. You may act a little more, let's just say, obnoxious, or you may have something to drink. You may be saying or doing things that maybe you wouldn't say or do with your parents or in church. Not passing judgment on that. Just saying, the functionalists are saying that these things are adaptive. They serve specific functions for us. So again, the functionalists move away from identifying elements of conscious experience to exploring the functions of these thoughts, behaviors, and feelings. So know the difference there. Then we get into the third major theory of psychology. And again, these will all apply to our understanding of personality theory and personality development. Behaviorism. You've probably heard of names like Skinner and Watson. And we're going to explore some of these theorists and psychologists and ideas more in depth as we get through the course. But again, just laying some foundation here. So John Watson and B.F. Skinner, who we'll talk about more, are the names often associated with behaviorism. Now, psychology is also striving to be seen as a science, or to be viewed with respect within the scientific community at this time. So we're talking about the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's hard to measure objectively thoughts or feelings. You can objectively measure behaviors some, but even there's some problems. So some of the other scientists in other disciplines will look at psychologists at this time and say, well, you can't really measure thoughts, you can't measure thinking and emotions, so this isn't really science. Well, we're striving to be a science at this point. We're trying to prove to people that yes, we can be scientific. So the behaviors basically came out and said, why are we even worrying about thinking? You can't measure it. I can't objectively measure what you are thinking. If I'm in class, I could ask you, what are you thinking right now? And you might tell me, I'm thinking about dinner, or I'm thinking about, hopefully, Mr. Dean's going to let us out early, or I'm thinking about whatever it is he's talking about. I don't know that for sure. I can't measure your thoughts. And even if you tell me, you may not be honest. You may misrepresent what you're thinking, or you may mistakenly say something that you don't mean. So there's no real way to measure the stuff, so the behaviorists are like, don't worry about it. We can't include it in psychology. Behavior can be observed. Behavior. So when we look at the behaviorists and their ideas about personality development, they're going to be looking at things like reinforcement and punishment, ways to manipulate and measure behaviors. And behaviors can be observed. And science should only study things that are observable. Again, through reinforcement, stimulus response, and punishment. So, behaviorists, or the behaviorism, these theories ignore the cognitive processes and focus on overt behaviors. And again, this is all good stuff to have in your notes. You want to have this stuff. And there's an image of Watson at the top, and then an image of Skinner at the bottom. Again, two people I'm sure that you've encountered before in your classes. Now, I want to take a minute and talk to you about reinforcement. Now, once you get this in your notes, and we're going to talk more about this as we go through the course, but reinforcement, by definition, you want to go and get your pens ready and write this down. Reinforcement, we're talking about increasing the likelihood that a given behavior will occur again. Again, reinforcement, by definition, is increasing the likelihood that a given behavior will occur or happen again. So we want to increase the chances that a behavior will happen again. There's two basic ways to do this, and you need to get the ideas of positive and negative that you're traditionally aware of kind of out of your mind. Here, positive doesn't necessarily mean good, and negative doesn't necessarily mean bad. I've lectured reinforcement to entry-level students all the way up to graduate courses, and students still get these confused, so I want to make sure that I spend a minute with these. It's real important to understand this, because this will underpin what we talk about later. Now, reinforcement is always just that. Increase the chances that something will happen again. Positive reinforcement simply means, write this down, that we are giving something or administering something to increase the chances that a behavior will happen again. Okay? I'll say it again. Positive reinforcement simply means that we are giving something or administering something to increase the chances that a behavior will happen again. Let me give you an example. If I want to increase the chances that my daughter will clean her room, she cleans her room today, and I'm very pleased with this. I want to increase the chances that she'll do it again and again and again. So I could give her something or administer something to her. So positive reinforcement says I could give her money. I could give her $10. I could give her an iTunes card. I could give her verbal praise. It doesn't even have to be anything tangible, but it has to be something that I'm giving her to increase the chances that she'll clean her room again. If I give her $10 today, then she might clean her room again next week thinking, oh, I'm going to get $10 more, so she'll keep doing it. Now, the trick with positive reinforcement is whatever it is you're giving someone to increase that behavior, it has to be something that they like. If my daughter doesn't like money, who doesn't like money, I'm just saying, but if she doesn't like money, then is this going to reinforce her behavior? No. So it has to be something that they like. Negative reinforcement, again, you still want to increase the chances that a behavior will occur, but with negative, write this down, this simply means that you are taking something away or removing something to increase the chances that behavior will occur again. Again, with negative reinforcement, you're taking something away or removing something to increase the chances that a behavior will happen again. We'll use the same example for purposes of simplicity here. I want to get my daughter to clean her room. I want her to do this repeatedly. I could take away something, such as chores. I might say to my daughter, if you clean your room again, then you won't have to walk the dogs, because she hates walking the dogs. So that could work. She keeps her room clean. Or I could take away something else that she doesn't like to do. I could take away, we'll just stick with the chore, for example. I could take away her walking the dogs. Now the thing with negative reinforcement, whatever it is you're removing or taking away, it has to be something that the person does not like to do. Okay, so if my daughter actually likes walking the dogs, then that's not going to work for negative reinforcement, because I'm actually taking something away that she likes. We have to be removing something that's aversive or something that they don't like. So just kind of understand the difference between positive and negative reinforcement. I would even encourage you to kind of jot down in your notes somewhere, because I'm getting ready to stop this video on the second part here. Write down in your notes different examples of positive and negative reinforcement. And if you have questions about them in class, ask me or email me if you're still not clear about that. And we'll call that the end of this video. Thanks.